Potato Board, and we represent about 6,000 potato producers in the United States. One of the markets which we found to be of very much interest is right here in Jamaica.
Get you up here, Mr. Harrison.
There we go. Well, okay. Everybody say potato.
Potato! Jamaican potato.
We had offers from Washington from some guys, a group of guys. We asked them what they wanted to buy from us, and there wasn't anything that they could buy from us. They just wanted to sell us potato seeds. We are not short of potato seeds. That's not our problem.
I'll give you a joke. You talk about get goods in the United States. I signed a contract to produce honeydew melon and cherry tomato. And you know what happened? Everything I send to the package, they turn it down, say it not reach the standard. They say don't package good. The size that we have is not meshing with their size. And the system went on so rotten with me that you know what I did? Discarded total.
NAFTA or whatever they call them, a free enterprise. They're not free, they flow like the Mississippi. It flows in one direction into the Gulf of Mexico. It never goes back up the hill. And whereas the Gulf of Mexico can absorb it, Jamaica cannot absorb the flow from Europe and from North America, all coming in on us. This is our country, our turf. Give us back our market. Don't try to force your idea on us.
If foreign imports cheaper, people happy make them money stretch. But who will look out for the local farmers? Them have family of feed too.
Farming, which is the backbone of our economy, so to speak. You find that the very farmers where farm them produce. Yet right now you have tons of cabbage a waste in Jamaica because goods coming in from America selling cheaper
Than what produced
what can be produced here.
Of course it is.
So you find it's just extracting more than putting in.
The Jamaica that I knew, the Jamaica in which I grew up, is not the Jamaica that you, a tourist, would see now. That Jamaica no longer exists. That Jamaica no longer exists partly for the usual reason, the passing of time, and partly because of this new global economy.
When you say the onion producing this year, you can look at every house or every yard that you see around here. Everybody, all young, middle age, involved in picking out onion, sowing onion, reaping onion, bagging up onion. So everybody was involved in the production in this district. But right now, it is just a trickle, just the brave one them.
When it's ready for harvesting, you see imported potato right out in front of your home being sold. Potato that's grown in Idaho or New Brunswick or some other
The
part.
Mandem say, if you are borrowing money, you happy stop producing locally.
We have this dairy farm has been going from in the early 40s. And my father farmed here before me. It was on a continual rise in production.
The industry flourished from 18 million liters a year to over 30. I think we peaked at around 34 million liters in 91.
In 1992, the government entered into an agreement with the Inter-American Development Bank for a loan of about $50 million, which was to support agriculture and manufacturing. The conditionalities of those were that we should abandon any form of local subsidies, and we should abandon any control of the imports of milk powder, meats, and what have you.
Almost always when the IMF is lending to a country, a developing country, we'll be making loans, the World Bank will be making loans, and if it's in the Americas, the Inter-American Development Bank, which is a regional counterpart of the World Bank, will be making loans.
So, you couldn't get World Bank unless IMF gave you the bill of health, and you couldn't get IMF unless the World Bank gave you a bill of health, and you couldn't get either unless the Inter-American Development Bank gave you a clean bill of health. Cross-conditionality. That is when they finally had you by two.
Minimum wage in Jamaica
Jamaican
is $9,000 a week.
And Professor
About
Dr. Andre
60
Harton
United
has been a
States
strong
dollars a
advocate
week.
for livable wages
How
in Jamaica.
people live off of
Minimum
that.
wage, when you think about it, it is compensation to motivate those of us with the least amount of skills, education, experience to do work, So it is normally paid to people in low-skill jobs like a man who does security work, or a housekeeper, or a gardener, or a man who does a particular packet bags at the supermarket, these type of jobs. When you look at this compensation and you compare it to other countries around the Caribbean, it is way below their minimum wage, which is the minimum that you need to survive. So when you talk about minimum wage, you want minimum wage to be juxtaposed against cost of living.
Minister of Labour Carl Samuda announced that effective April 1st, 2022, Jamaica's minimum wage would move from 7,000 Jamaican dollars per 40-hour work week to 9,000 Jamaican dollars. 9,000 Jamaican dollars is equivalent to an American making $54 for a 40-hour work week. The announcement came only a few days after the Bank of Jamaica warned to expect price increase due to inflation. Since the increase, Jamaicans have seen a rise in gas and food prices.
We want better living right now, better living, forget where we can live good, live in peace now we had, get good feed, we have money can buy good food, we have money can pay our rent, we have money can pay our light bill, but at the moment, we can't pay nothing, nothing we can do. We cannot do nothing, and we don't want nobody to vindicate for the little poorer class of people. Who have vindicate for we? Them are vindicate for them big friends when they got up a hill. But them can go in a supermarket, we then check. We then check book on them big money and pay. What we are going to do? We still like a small fry. We can't do that with $9,000. But hold on now. God bless United States of America. God bless Canada. God bless England and the little other country them. We take in black people, they can work and send little money and little barrel out to give them people that them can get little money sometime in them pocket and little clothes, little shoes and them something there. God bless them country there. Because whenever them country there we suffer, we dead worse.
Out of 146 countries around the world, Jamaica stands at 142 with the highest charges. There are only 4 countries, Belgium, Denmark, Bermuda and Germany, that pay more for electricity than we do in Jamaica.
The youths on the street, they need things to do. They left school, no job. How are we poor people gonna manage? Life is amazing, but things real bad.
Produce. If tourism and remittance mash up then what?
Bananas, why it cost them $5 to produce, that's set for the pound. We are unable to match the price of South Americans.
Well, in the past, things was very bright with us. But in the present right now, things low because the production gone down very low.
2 years ago, we had about 150 workers. Today, it's about 15 workers on the farm. My farm in particular, we have been trying to find investors to increase our capital over the last 2-3 years. But especially since the adverse WTO ruling, nobody will touch bananas. The banks won't invest in it, private investors won't invest in it, because the future looks dim.
In farmer years, banana was on top, banana was good. We could call it green gold in those days, because a farmer could export his banana. He could have a nice dwelling, he could have a car, but no, you just can't, you just living on survival now. No.
All we can do, we can plant the banana because we love to plant, right? But we can't sustain our trip without banana anymore.
And that is the reason, one of the main reasons for the young man on the street now, looting and shooting, because the parents can't help him anymore. Guys, banana, just banana, we used to think of to send our children to school.
We would like to have some better things going for us here than for us to be cut out completely out of the market.
Mind the fair and meet where you are in just.
About 3
Remember
years
this.
ago, this facility, which cost us 40 million to upgrade, was put in place to facilitate people like McDonald's and Burger King, increase our production and make patties that they wouldn't have to be importing them. McDonald's have asked us to supply them with a HACCP plan. We have done that. We have made burgers for them, which they have sampled and found to be okay. In fact, the taste has been much better than the ones they had imported, but we still have not been able to supply them.
Beef farmers from several parishes who've been hurting from the importation of less expensive meat today vented their frustrations against fast food giant McDonald's.
Yeah, well, I've been in farming from 1977. And I've never had a problem in all those years selling cow until last year. Although these animals should have been sold from December. We just can't sell them. In America, you wouldn't find cows grazing the pasture like this. They are injected with an anabolic steroid known as stilbestrol. We can't use stilbestrol here, it just doesn't come into the country. But it's being used on farms abroad. So when the people are consuming imported beef, they're really exposing
The
themselves.
fair and food Dima bring and hardly get taxed.
Usually seeks to implement is to get countries to eliminate artificial barriers to trade. They will require a country with an IMF program not to impose artificial restrictions on imports and not to unduly subsidize exports.
So when the person brings on his trailer, whether he's in Kingston or up here, whether a farmer gets smart and get on the trailer line, he will fill his pocket of money. But what will happen to the other thousands of farmers? So you're fattening a few people at the expense of a whole culture that took years to build up. You destroy it with a stroke of the pen.
He holds the handle and you hold the blade. I mean, you know, if you want the money badly enough, then you have to agree to his terms. So ultimately, the IMF usually gets
and vegetables on the market, saying all of the foreign foods were hurting their business.
The foreign Irish, the foreign carrot, the foreign ginger, everything full of the market.
But the supermarkets seem to be doing well with overseas produce, as they're being sold for less than the local produce.
So you're saying that the foreign lettuce and carrots are less expensive than the local lettuce and carrot?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
When you open up the marketplace, those who are in a better position to take advantage of the market do so.
We import the spray, we import the fertilizer, we import the seed. So what we have to put in? Only sunlight and our impact. And if we use that right, we produce a better quality thing, but at a high cost.
The problem is that we are competing with an unfair situation. In the States, nobody hires money for over 10%. The lowest cost here now is 19%. And it can be as high as 40%.
The US, the America, the one in Canada. And the red peas, we sell America.
When I was a little boy, I grew up. Everybody that you see around here, their livelihood was planting peanuts. All those days are over. Over and gone.
All this land is what we used to farm carrots. Now we cannot farm anymore. We don't got any market for it. Because through the foreign carrots.
It's an insult to our dignity of not being able to produce and sell in your own market at home.
This is a free market, and I've learned that because of the financial problem that the government is under. with the World Bank and the IMF. They are the one who institute the pressure on the government as far as we learn. Now we had a thing named protective market. The government said no import. And then now we compete with one another. But for the time being, you're open to the world to compete with the world.
Before we was unable to bring in anything because of the policy of the country. But lately it changed.
The difference with the person who comes in from foreign with his trailer is that he has now been given legal right to bring it in. So I'm not fighting him. I'm fighting the policy maker, the person who is foolish enough to say
Frigui banana
the United
exporting.
States don't produce any bananas. The multinationals have set up their government to protest at the level of the WTO and affect the lives of a lot of people in the ACP countries.
On the worrisome banana issue and the recent World Trade Organization ruling, President Bill Clinton assured the Caribbean that his country did not act to the detriment of the Caribbean.
Pursuing and winning our case at the World Trade Organization, our target was a discriminatory European system, not the Caribbean nations. I made it clear that as we work toward a solution with our European partners, we will continue to support duty-free access for Caribbean bananas in the European market, and we will seek ways to promote diversification of the Caribbean economies.
We have no access to the American market. The access we have is to Europe and to England in particular, and that is what Chiquita and the US are trying to kill at this stage.
Big companies which are American owned, Chiquita, Dole, and they already control 95% of the world market in bananas. But these companies want the whole hog.
Chiquita, Dole, Del Monte, all of this banana is being grown in Latin America. Life in Latin America is at the will of the master who owns these plantations.
Salaries for the workers are pitiable low. In one instance, I made to understand, so it's $1 per day. And nobody can exist on that sort of thing. Surely you will be able to produce cheaper bananas at that rate, but at what cost, socially and morally?
Now you employ 4 workers. How much a week do you pay the workers? How much do you gain per day out of the workers? So all what you gain been going away and nothing been staying in the country. So the country been getting poorer and poorer. And the people be getting more frustrated, more than more.
Like in the free zone, where we term the slave zones, you find the average worker is working far less than what that company would have paid a worker.
The implication of that was that you had to cut out some programs.
Essentially what the IMF wanted us to do was to devalue our currency. That's the first thing, to make our dollar cheaper.
They needed to expand their exports and diminish their imports. And the best way of doing that is to make foreign currency more expensive.
And since our society is so heavily dependent on imported food, imported fuel, imported books to go to school, imported medicine, when we devalue, the cost of those things we import go up to the citizens. And as a result, the economy today is much more under the control of foreigners, not necessarily through direct ownership, but through the mechanism of debt. In the 1970s, we owed $800 million. By the end of the 1980s, we owed $4 billion. Nowadays, we owe $7 billion. So the debt is rising, and all the time the debt is rising, our capacity to export, to produce, is getting less.
In Washington, they just looked at us and said, no. Your inflation last year was 18%. And under the positive inflation rate theory of interest, that means we're not allowing you to lend your farmers our money, which we lend you, at 12%. You must charge 23%. I remember I took 2 trips to Washington to say it is wrong economic policy, it is wrong socially, it is wrong to say that we must force the farmers to pay that rate of interest or you won't lend us the money.